Hi there, it's Mother Betty at St. Matthew's with the Bishop, and we're here to do a special Bishop Bits. You know, we've been doing these every couple of weeks and usually talk about things ecclesiastical, church-like, and so we wanted to do a special one today, and we're glad that you have joined us. So welcome, Bishop.
Well, good to be here, Betty.
Hey, as I look beside you, I notice a third chair. What is that about?
Well, I think we should get somebody to sit in that chair.
I do too, otherwise it'll just look
Let me
unbalanced.
introduce to you Patricia Hall, who is right here. Patricia and I are engaged to be married. How about that?
That is such exciting news.
And Patricia is from Juneau. She goes to the Church of the Holy Trinity in Juneau, and yeah, it's really exciting. She was crazy enough to say yes.
You know, sometimes that just happens. It's so wonderful.
So let's not disabuse her of her.
No, we don't want her to change her mind. So tell us, this may be the first time some in the diocese have met you and certainly have seen the two of you as a couple. And so the engagement is very new, right?
Yeah, it's only about a week old, I'd say.
The engagement is new, but the relationship has been going on for 5 years.
Well, tell us what's the love story? I love love stories.
Shall I?
Well, I'll start, and then
Okay.
you can fill in the details. But
All right.
I'm not sure how it happened that I began making my regular visitation to the Church of the Holy Trinity in Juneau on Christ the King Sunday, but that's kind of been the pattern for I think almost all 12 times I've done that. And as has already been mentioned, 5 years ago I was doing my visitation to Holy Trinity in Juneau, and they always are engaged in making apple pies at that time. And
It's our major fundraiser.
It's a major fundraiser.
Seems like a good idea.
300 apple pies.
Holy cannoli.
Yep, in one day.
Despite the fact that they get the bishop to help, they're actually able to do that. My job is typically to cut butter up because they know they've done a good assessment of my skill level. Anyways, Patricia was involved in the pie baking, and we did some of the work together and enjoyed conversation.
He's a very good apple peeler.
That's right. You were in charge of the apple peeling machine. That's right. I think I was promoted. Oh, I know I was promoted because I got to work with Patricia. And so it was really nice. And then they had your typical vestry potluck that evening. And evidently, I dominated Patricia's time that night. We chatted and just had a wonderful time. So that was that. And I should also add, because it might factor in to your part of the story, there is a wonderful theater troupe in Juneau called Theater in the Rough. Yeah. And when Holy Trinity rebuilt their church, they did an extraordinary job with the design, and they put a parish hall in there that was sufficient enough to have a small theater.
What a good idea.
Multi-purpose. I mean, it could be, the irony is we were peeling apples in there on Saturday, and Saturday evening they were having a performance of the play that Theater in the Rough was doing it. And the play was 84 Charing Road.
Charing Cross Road.
Charing Cross Road, right.
Yep.
Which is this delightful play about a woman who is in New York City, post-World War II. She's in New York City, and she's a bibliophile. She loves books, and she is interested in antique books. And she strikes up a correspondence with an antique book dealer in England. And the play is basically about their correspondence, and they become fast friends. You know, you would almost think that it was a romantic thing. It might have been some of that, but really it was just a wonderful friendship. They got to know each other's families.
They never actually meet.
They never met.
They only meet through these letters.
Yeah. So that was sort of the, that, and of course, that Sunday, there was this extraordinary.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
There was an extraordinary choir member who sang like an angel, and it was Patricia. So, anyways, that's sort of the setup, and then.
So yeah, so we just had such a wonderful time talking with each other, and I got this sense. I went to Father Gordon and I said, Father Gordon, is it possible that our bishop might be unmarried? And he said, yep, that would be accurate. And I said, do you think it would be okay if I sent him a Christmas card? And he said, I think that would be just fine. And so I did, and Mark wrote back. And the next thing we knew, we were exchanging books and poetry, and just that correspondence went on for about 5 months. And we weren't talking on the phone or anything. We really were engaged in this wonderful Charing Cross Road, correspondence. And then it happened that my father rushed to the hospital, and he was in intensive care. And usually my sister would leap in for something like that because she's retired and lives in California, but she couldn't. She was already taking care of another family member in Ohio. She couldn't get back. So my mother said, we really need you here. And unfortunately, it was spring break, and I could book a flight from Juneau to Seattle, but I couldn't get from Seattle to Portland. And I was kind of despairing. It was, okay, I'm going to have to rent a car, and I'm going to have to drive. And of course, I was distracted by just being upset the fact that my father was in intensive care. And I did have Mark's number. I did share that with him. I said, look, I just wanted you to know I'm going to have to go down and do this. He said, would it be okay with you if I met you in Seattle and I drove you down, and I just, it just was so touching. And I said, I would really appreciate that. So our first date was a 3-hour car ride where we actually really got to be alone and talk with each other. And that was the transition from me having a crush on him to me really recognizing the depth of his character and his love, and of course my father hooked up to all these tubes and everything, and he was a man of few words, but he took me over and he said, he's a keeper, which is super high praise from Dad. So that is our romance. It has just continued to blossom and unfold, and I couldn't be happier. And his family has been so warm and welcoming to me, and just instantly made me feel like I was part of the family. And my family as well have embraced Mark. So
that's lovely. Yeah. That's just lovely. So, and then we come to today, and they're getting married. And when is that blessed event going to happen?
Well, we've got April 30th sort of marked on the calendar. At Holy Trinity in Juneau.
What? Why aren't you getting married at St. Matthew's?
Well, this brilliant idea came to the rector of St. Matthew's. That
I know
maybe
her.
It should be. Do you?
I do.
Well, then you know all about her. And the idea was that it could be like a progressive dinner. We could do each portion of the wedding ceremony in a different parish church in the diocese.
Spread the love.
Spread the love. Starting naturally at St. Matthew's.
Naturally.
And then going around. Patricia has been a member of Holy Trinity for her entire experience as an Episcopalian.
Yes.
Right. Grew up in the Lutheran church.
Yep.
But Holy Trinity was a welcoming place when you were searching, right?
Well, it was an amazing experience of how I started to go there. I really had kind of, when I left the Lutheran church, and I tried to be a Presbyterian too, but they kind of went political. And anyway, I'm walking down the street. I lived in the neighborhood that Holy Trinity was in, and there was an elderly church member standing outside. It was a sunny day, and I was walking by, and he knew me from the arts community, and he said, Patricia, why don't you go to church here? And I looked at him, and I thought, Chapin, I don't know why not. I'll come. And that's what it took. And when I went into the sanctuary, I looked around and I realized, oh, this is where the people that I have always connected with in my community, this is where they are. This is where the people who are activists in the environmental movement, and this is where the people who are, active in women's rights, and this is where all the theater people are, and the singers, and the doctors, and the lawyers. And I looked at it, this is where the people who really care about their community are. I knew everybody. I had never put it together before. So it was sort of a funny, yeah.
Well, and this is sort of off topic for today, but I always say, and I think you do too, that the way to get somebody to come to an Episcopal church is by invitation.
If you hadn't said it, I was going to actually.
80 or 90% of people who join an Episcopal church is because they've been invited by a parishioner. So even though we're talking about something else today, invite someone to church, even if it is to watch it online. Invite, invite, invite.
That's actually a good invitation too. Why don't you come to church here?
Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
Yeah, and I did. I really fit in. So that is why this service will be there. And of course, Father Gordon Blue has been there from the very beginning. And so I really want him to.
I mostly was being silly about, but I certainly understand that that's where it should be.
But I want to hasten to add something that's important, and that is, all of this is pending the presiding bishop's consent.
I was going to ask about that.
Which I say tongue-in-cheek. Not that the presiding bishop has to approve of Patricia, because I know he already does, because Patricia actually was one of Holy Trinity's convention delegates in 2017 when the House of Bishops was meeting here, and talk about a exciting date. I invited Patricia to come and do some of the things that were going on at a House of Bishops meeting. I mean, can you imagine
really
something more exciting? And so Michael, the presiding bishop, knows Patricia. So it's not so much that that he has to consent to us as sort of a couple, but as anyone who has gone through holy matrimony knows, there are some requirements.
And we mere mortals, priests, have to get
and us submortals, bishop. I just did it again. Every one of these bishops' bits, I hit my microphone and make Jessica's head explode.
She's like that snowy owl. Her head goes.
So even us submortals, even bishops, and they're espoused to have to
follow the rules.
Yeah. So we've got to get my bishop's consent to do that. And of course, the other irony is we also have to have the consent of the rector of Holy Trinity. So we're pretty sure Gordon will.
So you live in Juneau, and you live in Fairbanks, where the bishop's office is. How will it work?
I'd like to address that. So when I came up for the House of Bishops, we had been writing for about a year, and these bishops' wives took me aside and they said, now, if this gets serious and you marry, we want you to follow some advice that we received. Do not sacrifice your life. They said the life of a bishop's wife is very, very lonely. And they said, what happens is, we'll be in middle of our careers in a certain town, and then our husbands get promoted, and we are supposed to move 300 miles away to a place we've never lived before, and we have no friends and no family. They said, do not sacrifice your life. You stay where you're at. He can go off. You can visit, but don't sacrifice your life. And so that, of course, yes, ma'am, but they were right. And being able to carry that sage advice forward, I realized I would be very lonely if he's traveling for a week, to go off to Point Hope or something, and I'm waiting around at home for him. I'd rather wait around at home in Juneau, where I have friends, and my artistic community and everything. So, and again, taking in what those very wise ladies told me, some 5 years ago, we're going to have 2 households. And Mark and the boys will still be here in Fairbanks, and I'll be in Juneau, but we will visit each other back and forth. I think the exchange will be really fun. And, there will, I'm sure, come a time when we will be under the same roof 24/7, 365. But in the meantime, we will follow the path that will give us both the most joy and let us be our best selves.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm kind of, I think it will be a real blessing. Well, it's already been a real blessing, but it will be a real blessing when I would be able to go to Juneau and maybe set up shop there for even as much as a month and do all of my Southeast visitations from Juneau rather than having to go, to Ketchikan, back to Fairbanks, down to Wrangell or Petersburg, back to Fairbanks. I think it would be much better to just make our home in Juneau the base for that time. And then one of the blessings, and yes, I just said one of the blessings of COVID has been that we've all discovered that it is possible to work remotely. And Patricia does have a job with the state that keeps her very busy, but it's a job that there is some possibility that she can work remotely, and then she could come and set up shop at our home here in Fairbanks for some time to do that as well. So
COVID was a really interesting experience for us. We did not physically see each other for 18 months.
Goodness.
We communicated by FaceTime and by phone and by text. And the fact that we came through that stronger than ever and with supporting each other through that, I think is real testament to our relationship. And I would like to tell you a pre-us meeting story where I had been single for a very long time, and I at one point had put out a prayer for my perfect man, and he showed up, but he wasn't really. He was everything I'd put. No, it wasn't you.
Wasn't me. I said it wasn't me.
He was everything superficial that I had said that I wanted. He was tall and he was handsome and he had a job that was meaningful to him, and he was athletic and all these things, and he liked to read. But I had not put on my list the things that are actually the most important, which is that he have a good sense of humor, and that he be kind, and he have a generosity of spirit, and just a gentleness and a way of approaching the world where, everyone is given the benefit of the doubt, right? That kind of kindness. So this fellow looked good on paper, but he was mean, and I felt miserable. So that put me off praying for my perfect man for a very long time. Finally, I realized, I don't know what I want. I need to trust God does. So my prayer was very simple, and it felt great to give it. I said, God, you know me better than I know me. You know who's right for me. Please just put that man in my path, and all I ask is that you make it clear that it's your will so I don't misread the signs. And about 2 months later, this guy showed up, and I thought, okay, God, you're putting a fine point on it, aren't you?
It was the funny hat, though, really, wasn't it? It was the funny hat.
So I just have to say that not only is he everything I ever wanted in a man, he's things I didn't even know that I wanted in someone. And so I have said it many times that Mark is a blessing in my life, and I am grateful.
Well, you're a blessing in my life.
This is
And I'm
so
grateful.
nice. It's so nice. So, is the wedding cake going to be an apple pie?
Oh, wow.
That's good, Betty.
That's a good idea, Betty. Now, an apple pie is going to have to show up, I think. But there's a Lattime family, I guess, trope, and that is my beloved Aunt Mary. I did it again. My beloved Aunt Mary, who you all know we mourning her death. She was a wedding cake aficionado, and of course, the only cake that was acceptable was a white cake. So we'll have to have a little white cake in honor of her.
Indeed.
And maybe a
I
little
got to
apple
meet
pie.
Aunt Mary.
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
2019.
Oh, good.
So.
Well, thank you. I wonder,
you,
as we
Betty.
kind of close this time out, if there's any last words that either of you would like to say to the diocese and other people watching around the world.
Well, I just am so thankful and grateful for the support that just surrounds us on every side,
Yeah.
individually and as a couple. And it's a blessing to have somebody who has supported me in this ministry all along, and it'll just go, as we say in the liturgy, from strength to strength.
Very nice. Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you could come today. I'm so glad that this is the way the diocese can find out about this
Bishop
wonderful
Bits.
news.
Thank you.
So, we won't always have this kind of announcement for Bishop Bits, although it would be really fun if we did, but we probably won't. We will continue doing these from time to time, every couple of weeks or so. If you have questions that you'd like the bishop to explore, just send them along to us at St. Matthew's. Again, thank you for joining us. Would you like to give us a blessing?
Absolutely. Well, the blessing is right here.
Oh, good job.
But God gives love to each and every one of us in abundance. A love that abides in good times and in bad times. A love that strengthens us when we need strength, but mostly a love that brings out the best in us. And when we share it, it brings out the best in others too. And may that love abide, and the blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be upon you and remain with you always.
Amen.
Amen.
See you soon. God bless.